Lesson 3.8. We are looking at how to make a formula for a arithmetic sequence. We've been talking about recursive. We've been talking about explicit. We're going to be doing that some more today, and I need to get you guys to the point where you can be comfortable going back and forth between the two of them. Okay? So what we are going to do is start, first of all, by writing in here a sequence with a constant difference. Between successive terms is called a linear or arithmetic sequence. Because there is a constant difference between successive terms, a linear sequence is a, this should just say, I'm not sure what I was going to say right here. I put something else. I'll come back to that in a few minutes. Sorry about that. I just realized I wrote linear sequence again. That was not what's supposed to be there. Okay, so we'll come back to that. All right, so example 1a. Write an explicit formula for the arithmetic sequence 4, 7, 10, and 13. So when you guys see this, the first thing you're going to want to do is write yourself a little table of n. Okay, and they're going to say a sub n, because that's typically what we're calling these sequences. I'm going to start off with number 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first term of the sequence is what? 4. That was already given to us, right? The next one was 7, 10, and 13. So what I want to do, first of all, is to find out what the constant difference is. So typically what I do is I look and see between these two, what is my change? Plus 3, correct. Okay, what is my change here? Plus 3 again. And then what is my change here? Plus 3 again. So it's constant. Okay? Anytime you see that it's constant already, that means it's a line. If you get that right away, it's at some kind of a line. And also, that plus 3 is our what? Our slope. That's a slope. So what we need to do, whoops, sorry about that. What we're going to do here is we're going to use that to help make our equation. Okay, so right away I know that my constant difference is equal to my slope. All right, so I want to make an equation of a line here with that. I'm going to say that a sub n, I'm going to pick one of my points. Which point do you want to guys use? The first, second, third, or fourth point? Second. Second point? Okay, we'll use second. So a sub n minus 7, because I'm using the y value there, or the a sub n value, equals my slope, which was what? We just figured that out. 3 times my x value, which in this case we're using n, minus 2. That's that point slope form that we were using. So if I multiply this out, I'm going to get 3n, and if I distribute, 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Now, how do I solve for a sub n by itself? Add 7 to both sides. So it'll be a sub n equals 3n minus 6 plus 7, which is plus 1, right? Do you guys see that? Okay. One little thing I was thinking about. See if you guys notice anything with this. What if I went backwards in time? Say at time 0. Let's go back to time 0 right here. How would I find out what my value is at time 0? Subtract 3 from what? From 4. So what is that? 1. Huh. What do you notice? Look at that compared to my explicit formula. That's the y-intercept. Okay? I want you guys to write that down somewhere. Y-intercept is value at time 0. Or you can say at step 0. Okay? So, there's really two ways I can find my explicit formula. One way is to use my point slope. The other way is to go backward in time one step and use that as my y-intercept. Which one's easier? You think about that. Okay, so let's try another one. I want you guys to try this one. You can try either way. Use the point slope or going backward in time, like Doctor Who. Okay? So see if you can do it either way. I'm going to pause this. So, if you actually go through and write out your little table again. 1, 2, 3. They give you 5 numbers. I don't really need all 5 of them, right? So 6, 10, 14, 18. What is my constant difference? Plus 4 each time. So that is my what? My slope, okay? So that is my slope. So I can use this formula right here, which is actually the point slope form of a line, but it's just been moved around, okay? So I can use that. So I could say a sub n equals a sub 1, which happened to be 6 in our case, plus n minus 1 times my d, which happens to be slope, okay, which is 4, right? So if I do that, I have 6 plus 4n minus 4, or I could say 4n plus 2. Now, if I had gone the back in time formula, let's do that for a second. I'm going to go back in time, starting right here at 6, and instead of adding 4, I'm going to subtract 4. What do I have at 0? 2. So, look it. Here's my 2 right there. I already know my slope, so I could have just said, okay, I'm going to use the y equals mx plus b formula, right? So I could say 4, because I know it's 4 constant difference, plus 2, because that's what it is at time 0. Yeah.
Can we do that on the test?
Yeah.
Wait, why do we use that formula?
You can. One thing I noticed when I was doing this a little while ago is I didn't find out what it was for the 25th term for this, nor did I find out what it was for the 30th term of this. Okay? So now that I have my formula, how do I find the 30th term? Yeah, just plug it in for n. So a sub 30 is 3 times 30 plus 1, which happens to be 91, right? Okay? So lots of times these problems, they'll tell you to find the formula first, and then they'll say some obscure random number way off in the distance, so that you can't just go through and recursively find it. Okay? So here's the next one. It says the 25th term. So what I'm going to do is put what in for x? 25. So 4 times 25 plus 2, that's going to be 102. Okay? All right, the other thing that's important here, you guys might want to write this down, is this formula. The sequence defined by the recursive formula, okay? And D is your constant difference. So you can write that down somewhere in your notes. All right, so now we're going to some real life like stuff. Okay, we've done just given you numbers. Now we want to look at some real stuff. So a cell phone company charges 25 cents per minute for overseas calls with a 30-cent service charge. Write the recursive formula for the arithmetic sequence that represents the cost of calls lasting n minutes. So first of all, I want to find out what my cell phone call cost me at time 1. So a sub 1. How much would it cost me? 30 cents plus what? Because we're at the end of 1 minute, we'll have 25 cents, right? So the total of that is what? 55 cents. Okay? Now, I want to find out what my next minute is. How do I find that? Yeah, in a sense, that is what we do. That you're thinking about explicitly. So, but how do I find the next one based on what I have already? So really, I'm going to take my last, which is a sub n minus 1, or 55 in this case, right? Add what to it? Add 25 to it. Okay, so this is my recursive formula. And this is for all n. Don't forget to write this down. All n greater than or equal to 2. Okay. Now, my next question for you is if I wanted to write this as an explicit formula, what would I do? Yeah.
You would put 25 times m x plus 30.
Yes, 25 times x, that's my change, right? Well, actually, we're going to do n because we're working with n's, right? Okay. So 25 times n plus, what was the number we had to start with altogether? 30. Okay? So this is my explicit formula. And this is my recursive formula. Okay? So then it says graph the sequence. Okay, so if we were to start at, we're going to do 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, so if I'm starting at 30 at a y-intersect, it's going to be right here. And if I'm going up 25 each time, so a rise of 25, a run of 1. So 25 is about halfway between these two, and a run of 1 right here. Once again, about right here. Does that seem right to you guys? That would be my line. Okay, now let's pause this. I want you guys to try to set up both the, first of all, the recursive. That's exactly what it's asking for, but I also want you to try to think about how you would say it explicitly as well. Okay, so do that. So here we are going to write a sub 1. We need to find it, the first term. And we know that they charge $2 for each word of classified add plus 14. So it'll be 2 plus 14. Okay, so that's going to be 16. Right? And then if I said a sub n, that's going to be the last one, a sub n minus 1, which happens to be 16 in our case. And then what are we adding to it? Plus 2. Okay? So this is for all n greater than or equal to 2. Okay? Now, if I wanted to write this in explicit, what's my slope? Yeah, it's 2 because it's adding 2 each time, right? That's your change for each word. So I'm going to write a sub n equals 2n. And now, what is the number that we started with at time 0? 14. Okay? Yep, that's the y-intercept, 14. Okay, because that's the service charge. They're going to charge you that no matter what. You're going to have to pay that if you use them, right? So this is the explicit one on the right. The one on the left is the recursive. Okay, for time's sake, I'm not going to graph this one. I think you guys probably know how to do that. But I'm going to go on to the next one, okay? Okay, so example 3A. Some car dealers offer interest-free loans provided that you pay back an amount borrowed by a certain date. Suppose a car costs this much right here. It requires this many payments a month. Okay? Let A sub n be the amount you still owe after n months. We need to make a recursive formula and an explicit formula for this. Okay? So A sub 1, at the end of the first month, how much do we have? How do I find that? So if I got a loan, it's going to be 14,736 minus however much I paid for it that month, right? Which happens to be 245.60. Right? Okay, so that ends up being 14,490 and 40 cents. Okay, now A sub n. What's my next one going to be? Remember, we're looking at recursively, so what am I always have to look at? My last one, so it's going to be my A sub n minus 1. And then what am I going to do to that? Subtract 245, because that's how much I'm paying each month to pay off my loan. Okay? And this is for all n greater than or equal to 2. Now, that being said, what is my slope in this case? What's changing every month? I'm paying how much a month? 245. So that's my slope. And it's a negative because we're paying off something, okay? So negative 245.60 times n, okay? And then I'm going to add what my starting amount is, which happens to be what? Okay, 14,736. Okay, so this one's my explicit formula. All right, so now I want you guys to take a second and try to do the last one and make sure you're on track, and we'll check, okay? All right, so right, recursively, remember we're going to take A sub 1 was whatever we're paying at the end of the month. So we have 8,760 minus 182.50. Okay, whatever that was. I don't remember. I didn't calculate it. Okay. So then I need to find A sub n. That's the same as saying A sub n minus 1 minus 182.50. Yep. Okay. And that's for all n greater than or equal to 2. All right. Now I also want to make the explicit formula, which happens to be, what's my slope in this case? Negative 182.50 times n. Good. And then what's my original? Yep, 8,760. Good. You guys are good. Okay? So